Want you leave the meeting and rejoin without any audio at all? It's playing, it's using your speakers even though your microphone's turned off. So when you join, don't have any audio.
Don't join audio at all. Right. Yeah,
That's still on. No, because it's, so join audio, that means you're not connected to audio, that's where you want to be. Right?
Yeah. And right now the sound's gone away, is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
that's awesome. Okay, so this is at max. Test. It has 11 notches. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 11, 12. 12 notches. Four, five, six, seven, 8.
Seven commissioners and then Eric. Erica will be joining via Zoom. And I think she's taking the main role, but I don't know. Jaylee was supposed to let me know. And Jaylee was out today.
Oh, no.
Okay.
Choose a meeting. Go to video. You choose the meeting according to what you named it, which I can't see, but it looks like, yeah, regular meeting. Add, save. Oh, you checked that box. Yeah. You gotta add that to the notes. Check the timestamp.
You can do the timestamp. I have to go in and do it, per item, but like when I listen to the minutes, I click on the timestamp feature. I don't know if you just keep doing what you were doing. That's for me. That helps. Okay.
Yeah.
So I have this up, but it's showing the participants, so I guess I'll just.
It's actually okay for you to show them both.
Oh, that's right, that's right, because I forgot, I'm the main screen.
You're one of the main screens, yeah.
I'm the one that, yeah.
But this one will never show up. Post PT and 6 p.m. start aren't going to show. So these you can do. Hide on video for this one. Is it a shoot from?
Well, there we go.
I'm gonna turn off the.
Which one should I use? That's kind of like a little bit of.
So, yeah.
Turn my mic on yet.
Okay, so I'll join the meeting and I'll go outside and listen.
And I'm gonna talk through a microphone, right? That'll help here.
Yeah.
If found, please call or drop off at any. What's that sticker for?
Oh, telephone, cell phone.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and I.
Put it on our
Tricky
forehead.
is Deborah's, yeah. Deborah's not here, but she's gonna leave the meeting. Which I don't support, but I'm charged. She's attending remotely, but she's still gonna chair the meeting, and I feel like she should just let Brooke do it, because Brooke's here in person. But, because that way, because there's all these things I put out, and I just started thinking like, oh, Deborah, you know, I guess I can let her know.
Okay, so you guys are gonna go outside.
Okay. I call this meeting to order, this faux meeting to order. Let's see, let's start with public access. No, let's start with public comment. Do we have any public comment?
Yes.
Yes, okay, yes, please, ma'am. Please go to the podium. Oh, do you want a microphone? Let's get a microphone for public comment. Here we go. Public commenter. All right, ma'am, thank you. At the podium, you have 3 minutes.
That's it?
That's it.
Wow.
That sounds good. Now I'd like to actually speak remotely over there. So I'm gonna promote myself. Sorry for this delay. I should have,
Did you hear a public comment?
I can hear everything. I'm joining as panelist.
Okay, we'll see if we can.
I didn't even get to say my piece.
You
So
said,
sorry. Okay, I'm now speaking. Can you guys hear me okay?
hear you perfectly.
Yes.
Where's the sound coming from?
It's coming from the Jabra speaker in the middle of the table.
Beautiful. Okay, that's the main thing we wanted to double check.
You should hear it too. Well, you don't have to. I'm not gonna touch your phone, no offense.
Okay,
But it sounds really good.
okay.
Yeah. All right. Sounded good. Of course, not everyone has your voice.
His radio voice.
His radio voice. His deep tenor radio voice.
My mumble, it's not how to play a mask over top of my mumble.
These masks are important right now, man. There's like Commissioner Alkend, I mean, it's, people are like not wearing masks and they're like, oh, I got COVID, oh, I got COVID. I'm like, what?
Do you want me to?
I could change the view, but. Okay, this is.
right.
We'll see you at
Isn't
10:30.
it kind of sad that
Starting a meeting.
it's all fighting over such limited funds? And we know where those funds are.
We're rolling in money.
Good evening, everyone.
Library out of petty cash.
So,
All right. Let's see.
Me, Deborah says she will be running the meeting remotely. So,
And you are lucky.
That's right. I believe we're missing Andy at the moment. Anybody else?
No, I'm here.
Are you? Oh, I'm sorry, Andy. I thought you were joining via Zoom.
I am.
Okay. There you are. Okay. All right, then I am going to call this meeting to order. Commissioner Cahill,
Here.
Commissioner Elkin,
Here.
Commissioner Engbarth,
Here.
Commissioner Goldberg,
Here.
Mr. Green, Mr. Hauser,
Here.
Commissioner Havenridge. Yeah. All right. Commissioner Lagos,
Here.
Commissioner McKenzie,
Here.
Commissioner McMillan. No?
No.
All right. Okay. I believe Paul will be joining us later. He said he was going to be here. Signed didn't say anything. Do we have any in? One thing, I just want to remind everybody that we are going to be meeting at headquarters next month. So, are there any other announcements?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, here we go. With a long history of libraries in the city of Roanoke Park and the fact that our headquarters are here, we have this lovely library, I thought it was appropriate to announce Roanoke Park History Day. Everyone is invited, everyone here, everyone in the community, and it is on February 24th, a Saturday. And we're going to have all kinds of archival and interesting displays, and we'd love to have everyone come and join us, and we have a flyer right here. Thank you.
Thanks. Any other announcements? Okay, are there any members of the public who have a comment?
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Pretty cool.
Hey, Tom.
I was here before Roanoke Park was.
Glad.
yes.
Hello, my name is Dwayne DeWitt. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak with you. Noticed in your minutes, you don't put my name when I speak. I'm giving you permission to use my name. It's okay for people to know what I say in a public meeting, especially about Roseland. 8 years ago, before the city of Santa Rosa decided to annex the last portion of Roseland that they had made into a county island 24 years before that, they talked with us about how the Roseland Fire Department had a surplus of $3.5 million that had come about from Roseland taxpayers. At those meetings, I spoke up and said, when you annex that fire district, you should keep that money in Roseland, and it should go to help Roseland somehow. Specifically, what we had in mind, myself and others who lived in Roseland a long time, longer than Roanoke Park, is that that money could keep the Roseland Fire Station building intact, and that could be used as a museum and a branch library hub. The city of Santa Rosa, working with apparently the Sonoma County Library, basically has been talking about different activities. And the city apparently has bought the building where the current Roseland Library is at, which is a really good site. It's really been doing a good job, really helping a lot of people in Roseland. We wish it would stay there. If it doesn't stay there, we hope that you folks would not be averse to helping Roseland residents get some sort of a Roseland branch library in Roseland, up in the north section where the Roseland Fire Department building is still. We understand you're putting forward a lot of money to build a new library in the Bellevue district, south of us, a mile and 2/10 from where the current one is. It's only about a half mile from where I live, But I actually prefer the library to be up along Sebastopol Road in the census district. It's the most disadvantaged in all of the county. So please keep it in mind and don't look at it like we're trying to disrupt your efforts for bigger things to the south. As the city of Santa Rosa is landsharking and preparing to annex and build many more units. Roseland needs what we have now, which is a Roseland library doing a very good job for Roseland residents. Thank you for your time, and please don't feel bashful about using my name in any of your minutes or wherever you talk about me. It's Dwayne DeWitt. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. DeWitt. Commissioner Elkin, did you have your hand up?
I did. I'm not sure anything can be done, but I was getting echo on the audio from the room. I can hear you perfectly.
Well, let's see how it goes along as we
Thank you.
continue. Thanks.
Chair Doyle, there is a member of the public via Zoom that would like to comment.
All right. Go ahead. Are you having difficulties? We're not hearing you. Are you on mute?
Just now I unmuted.
There we are.
Oh, here we go. And I can't see anyone just now. Am I visible?
You are.
Oh.
You have 3
okay.
minutes. There you go.
Okay, thank you. It's odd speaking to a blank screen, but I'm very compelled to speak with you all because censorship has been going nuts, as we all know, over the last 3 to 4 years. And it concerns the books that I wanted to be purchased and included in the collection. So I suggested titles and heard nothing, and then heard nothing and suggested them again and followed up. And because of my perseverance, I was responded to by Vandy Tompkins. I don't know if she's present or not, but she wrote back to me and explained the criteria that are used, and also that there's no system in place for apprising people who suggest titles to be purchased. So the books that I suggested are apparently not by the publishers that you usually, or the booksellers from whom you buy books, but they're impeccably researched books which are against the mainstream narrative. And so it will be challenging to find them. But the titles I just want to run past you are Turtles All the Way Down, and the subtitle is Vaccine, Science, and Myth. And this is a tome of about 400 or 500 pages with 1,200 footnotes that are all studies, scientific studies. The other 2 books that I suggested are The Real Anthony Fauci and The Wuhan Cover-Up. Both of these are by Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And clearly, if there were anything in either volume that was not 100% impeccably true, he would be the subject of lawsuits. So all of these titles, I think, are not only important, but really vital to be included in the collection. Now, I also want to mention that I inquired from Vandy whether, if it were easier, I would buy and donate the books. But apparently, even for donations to be included in the collection, it goes by the same kind of criteria. They need to have, it needs to be reviewed positively in a reputable source, such as the New York Times, San Francisco Chronicle, Press Democrat. These days, legacy media is not a reputable source. So I think the criteria needs to be reviewed somebody needs to be in a position to make exceptions as needed. And there needs to be a bit more communication with patrons so that when we suggest books, we get some kind of a feedback loop saying whether it's been accepted or not. So I would like actually to have a feedback loop set in this case so that I can be apprised as to whether my 2 suggestions, 1 for these books and 2 for a system of telling people when their suggestions are accepted, how I might get responses to those. Thank you.
Thanks very much for your comment. Any other public comments? All right, then we are going to move into action items by resolution. Our first one is Library Lovers Month resolution. Commissioner Goldberg? Traditionally February is Library Lovers Month, and we usually have a resolution that applauds libraries and applauds all those who love libraries. So this is our annual tradition.
Should I read the draft motion and the resolution?
Yes, please.
Okay, the draft motion. I move that the Sonoma County Library Commission approve a resolution celebrating February 2024 as Library Lovers Month. It was submitted by Ray Hawley. And the resolution reads, Libraries Lover Month, Library Lovers Month 2024. Whereas February is recognized as a time to celebrate love, and whereas free public libraries embody love for the freedom to read, discover, learn, and share, and whereas the top 10 list is a charming and beloved tradition, we submit 10 reasons to love the Sonoma County Library. 1, so many books. With hundreds of thousands of books in the collection, a service that lets you borrow from libraries all over the West Coast, and thousands of ebooks and audiobooks, we're here to support your love of reading. 2, park passes. Visit hundreds of participating parks for free with a California State Library Parks Pass or a Sonoma County Regional Parks Pass. 3, Canopy. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show with Canopy's streaming video library offering indie films, documentaries, and more. FreeGal. Listen to top artists and deep cuts with FreeGal, the library's free music streaming service. 5, events for everyone, from story time to book clubs, live performances to cultural events. Explore our events calendar for endless entertainment. 6, recommended reads. Looking for your next favorite book? We've got you covered with librarian curated book lists. 7, business and career help. Fine-tune your resume, update your job skills, or build your business with our career resources. 8, technology. Access free Wi-Fi, public computers, device charging, and printing at any library location. 9, find free. Check out up to 100 items at a time, no late fees. 10, Sunday hours. Thanks to public support of libraries, we've expanded our hours to include Sundays at all regional branches. Therefore, be it resolved that the Sonoma County Library Commission celebrates February 2024 as Library Lovers Month.
As a motion.
There's more? No.
No, there isn't. I'm going to take that as a motion. Do I have a second?
Second the motion.
Any discussion?
Chair Doyle, Commissioner
Yes.
has joined the meeting and has his hand raised.
Commissioner Heavenridge.
I just thank you, Lisa. I just wanted to say, Chairman Doyle, that I have joined the meeting, and I was going to at least second this motion, but it's already been seconded, so.
It has. it has, but I'm sure there's something else you could second later in the meeting. Thank you,
Okay.
Commissioner Heavenridge. Any comments on Library Lovers Month? The resolution? I don't see any. If you've got your hands up and you're in person, wave it around so I can see it, but I don't see any. So I'm going to call the motion. Commissioner Cahill?
Yes.
Commissioner Elkin?
Yes.
Commissioner Ainsworth?
Yes.
Commissioner Goldberg?
Yes.
Commissioner Green?
Yes.
Commissioner Hauser?
Yes.
Commissioner Heavenridge?
Yes.
Commissioner Lagos?
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie?
Yes.
And has Commissioner McMillan joined us?
No.
No. Okay. All right, then Library Lovers Month it is. Now we're going to move to presentations. The first one is maintaining and enhancing library collections and how the Measure Y has impacted our collections.
Good evening, commissioners. How is the audio?
Can't hear.
Get closer, Mike.
Kiss the microphone.
Am I supposed to hold it up?
No.
Push the button so it's green.
Button is green. There's nothing to this.
Oh.
Okay, I'll move it a little bit around. Testing. Okay, how's this one?
Talk as loud as you can. Project Sarah Bernhardt on stage,
Public speaking.
opera singer.
Libraries are for everyone.
Yeah. As close to the microphone as you can get.
Getting mixed messages here.
Yeah, that's good.
Is that good? Okay, if it changes, let me know and I'll adjust. So my name is Jamie Anderson. I'm your Collection Services Division Manager. I have been with the library since 2005, and putting this presentation together was sort of like a trip down memory lane for me. I was one of the staff who was here in 2016 when we were passing the last tax measure. Worked on that campaign and look forward to working on the next one. I very much remember what it was like before we had the sales tax revenue, and we've come a long way. So if you were to rewind a little bit back to 2016 or even further back, the library was running very leanly. We had enough money to pay our employees, books on the shelves, to keep the lights on. We had very limited hours though, and we relied heavily on our friends groups for supplementing our book budget, supplementing our events and programming budget, and we relied heavily on our volunteers to do key tasks such as shelving. So tonight I'm going to be talking about the impact of sales tax measure on our collections. So this is a quote, I think it was from a Gurnhill patron. It says, "Great resource, books, children's books, DVD movies, CDs, it's such a useful part of our lives." Okay.
Could I remind people to put to mute their mics so that we can hear Jamie? Thank you.
Okay, so maintaining physical collections. The Measure Y expenditure plan specifically called on us to maintain library collections. We have done that. We have over 600,000 physical items currently in our collection. Thanks to Measure Y funding, we were also able to add some new formats that we had not had previously. Some examples of this would be our video game collection, movies on Blu-ray, playaways, which are audiobooks to go,
and box books and wonder books, which you may not be as familiar with, but they are children's picture books that are read-alongs, so you listen to the audio as you go through the story. And we've also enhanced and reimagined some of our pre-existing collections. A few examples of this would be our New American collection, our Adult New Reader collection, our World Languages collection. We have over 40 different languages represented in our collection now, graphic novels and manga, and our veterans collection. With Measure Y funding, we've been able to improve our wait times for popular bestsellers and popular movies. Our polls to copy ratio is currently 4:1. Just to explain that a little bit further, because I know it can confuse people sometimes. That means for every 4 polls on a particular title, we will have at least 1 copy that's circulating. If there are 8 polls on a particular title, we would have at least 2 copies. If there are 12 polls, we would have at least 3 copies, and so on. Prior to Measure Y funding, our polls to copy ratio was 7:1 and then 8:1. So this is why I say that our wait times have been cut nearly in half since the Measure Y. People do still have a wait today, but it's not that bad. It's more what it used to be. We also maintain that ratio for all of our formats. It's not just our books, it's our movies, it's our ebooks, and it's our e-audiobook collection as well. Secondly, we have increased our digital checkout limits in Libby and Hoopla. We've also increased the number of polls that people can place in those platforms. We have added Lucky Day copies of popular books and popular DVDs. These are copies that are not requestable, that you just plug in, and if they're available on the shelf at that time, it's your lucky day, you can check it out. And lastly, I didn't put this on the slide, but we also added a leasebook program, and that was to help us manage our inventory during a period of time when that title was really, really popular. During that high demand period, we could shore up our copies, and when the demand wanes, we're able to get those copies off the shelves and move them back along. Okay, so for expanding our digital collections, put some comparisons on here to 2016 compared to 2023. So you can see the numbers. In 2016, our ebook collection was comprised of about 125,000 titles. Compared to 2023, it had jumped up to 383,694. For the audiobooks, which by the way are more popular than the ebooks, the audiobooks are one of our most popular formats, and they are also one of the most expensive formats. In 2016, we had about 40,000 e-audiobooks, and in 2023, 340,344 e-audiobooks. As we've been talking about at many of these meetings, and you see each month in the stats, our digital circulation has increased dramatically. In 2016, we had 588,000 circulation for digital checkouts, compared to 2023, where it was almost 1.5 million. We've also been able to expand our streaming content. These are very popular. We've added new streaming video services such as Canopy, new music platforms such as Spreagle, that was mentioned earlier in the Revolution, all possible with Measure Y funding. We've also added The Shelf most recently, which is a Spanish language streaming platform with Spanish language movies and TV shows. Managing on databases, in 2016 we had 47 databases. Last end of 2023, we had 128 databases. So these are very large increases. Not all of these resources were supported by the sales tax money, but many of them were. Some of them do come to us courtesy of the California State Library. Our databases have quite a wide range of topics that they cover, from business to literature to health, consumer research, to neurological research, all sorts of support for students as well. Okay, I hope this slide was enough for you to read. I know the numbers are small. When we talk about expenditures on our collections, going back to fiscal year 2015, 2016, our books and materials budget was around 1.7 million. And then if you jump forward to fiscal year 22, 23, it was right around 4 million. There is a blip in fiscal year 2021 because of the pandemic, of course, closed for several months. There was some economic uncertainty at that time, so our CFO at the time had us sort of suspend expenditures. For resource sharing, in 2019, we added a service called Link Plus, partly possible and partly funded by Measure Y funds. It's become very popular with patrons. Over 20,000 items were borrowed in 2023. And it has a very high fill rate of 96%. We were just looking at the stats on this recently, and there has been a 10% increase in requests from just 2022 to 2023. So we continue to see it growing. That brings us to special collections. There's been a lot going on in this area since 2016. I just put on this slide a few of the notable improvements to our special collections. The big one would be in 2021 when we moved our Zoom archives to a safer location near the airport. That move was funded with Measure Y funds. The following year, in 2022, we took some of our more fragile materials, maps, blueprints, and were able to house or rehouse them into archival boxes to improve their preservation. And throughout the years 2017 to 2023, we've been working hard to digitize many of the materials that are in our special collections, get them cataloged, and make them available online so people discover what we have. So Measure Y overall impact. This figure on here, which is the same number that was in the Measure Y Oversight Committee's report recently, $8,937,515 of sales tax money has been spent on books and materials since the inception of Measure Y. And for the Commission's allocation policy, as you know, 40% of the materials budget each year is coming from Measure Y funding. The additional spending on our collections has translated into an increase in our overall circulation. And I didn't create a slide for this, but in 2016, our circulation was right around 3 million, and in 2023, just over 4 million. So again, another big increase. Just a few more patron comments here. Just read them out. One is the library has a phenomenal selection of materials. I already recommend it to others. There are always great books on display in case I'm in need of ideas. And my favorite, whatever I need is there or can be obtained via Link Plus. Thank you. So in conclusion, I just wanted to add, collections has really benefited from Measure Y funding. It's gotten a big boost, and I think people are feeling it and seeing it in our libraries. I recently have started reminding people that the #1 reason that people come to the library is the collection. The #1 reason that people come to our website is to search our catalog so that they can check out those materials and use our collection. So the statistics show that the main driver of our in-person visits and our online visits is the collection. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Jamie. Really, we appreciate your trying to be as loud as you could for those of us who are online. Do we have any questions for Jamie? And I'm sorry?
Commissioner McKenzie has her hand raised.
Commissioner McKenzie.
Thank you. This is a very comprehensive report. I appreciate it very much. I assume you're going to go out on the Hastings and talk about it to people, but I wanted to ask, I know we the other two, I think it's the other two special collections that we have, the Wine Library, Petaluma History Library. And I wondered about the potential impact of Measure Y money on those. Obviously, we're renovating, we will be renovating Petaluma Library, and what would be the impact on that special collection, and then anything that's also on the wine library.
Sure. So our special collections are made up of history and genealogy library, the County Archives, the wine library at the Healdsburg branch, the history branch. And so the Petaluma History Room and the wine library have also benefited by many of their collections have been digitized on our website. And then in terms of provide contribution to those building projects, they're slated, as you know, for modernization project in the near future. So those collections will be relocated, we'll have some additional space. To my knowledge, we don't have any specific plans to increase the preservation of this collection with use. Area to
Any other questions? I don't see any hands. It's terrific. Erica, do you have any comments on the collection?
No, I mean, other than, you know, the amazing increase in funds, it's literally double what we spent, actually more than double than what we spent in 2015, 2016. So, you know, I think that's a testament to the measure and how well it has supported our collections. And the digital increase, you know, many of those items, as you all know, are more expensive than print materials. So, you know, the fact that we have increased our digital holdings by 244% is also pretty amazing.
Thanks very much. All right, then hearing no other comments other than great appreciation for what the staff has done with the Measure Y funding and other funding. We thank you very much, Jamie. And with that, we will move on to item 5.2, the ballot measures. We're going to hear from council about allowable activities before a measure is approved by legal counsel.
Good evening, everyone.
I believe I've shared my screen. Can you see it here? It's just a big green chronic slide.
We can see part of it.
Huh.
Uh-oh.
I've clicked. You'd think I'd be better at this by now.
Unless it's my screen. But
Might be your screen, Deborah, because I see.
I can see everything perfectly.
You can
okay,
see the
then let's
entire
do my
slide.
screen.
Yeah.
There we go. Then
Chair Doyle, you're just extra special. Or we really want you to focus on that one part of the slide.
That's right.
If you're having any viewing trouble, a copy of these slides are provided in the agenda packet.
There it is. Thank you.
Oh, great. Because I'll give the disclaimer, but also the slight pride that I was in charge of the icons for these slides. I added a little pizzazz in the last few days here. So if you like them, it was me. If you don't, it was some law clerk. But yeah, so you guys know Jeff, you know me, and we are the library's general counsel with the Measure Y probably coming up on the ballot here. Chair Doyle and Director to vote asks that we give a presentation and open the floor for questions, comments, but the takeaway is that there is a wide variety of situations that we cannot always predict. So we hope that you will not hesitate to reach out to us if any sort of situation regarding ballot advocacy or opposition, ballot measure advocacy or opposition, you don't hesitate to reach out to us before potentially getting yourself and or the library in a pickle here. Jeff, anything else?
A pickle is the legal term, so.
Yeah.
No, I think those are great introductory remarks. Obviously, the background here is the potential that the Library Commission may decide to put a measure on the ballot in November as a successor to Measure Y, which is set to expire. And so, Olivia, if you want to move to our first slide, we'll try to go through the slides fairly quickly, and I will try to pay attention to hands that get raised. But we definitely want to leave time for anyone to ask questions on this. So let's just start with the general rule. This originates with a case from 1976 called Stanson v. Mott. The general rule is that absent express statutory authority, public resources can't be used to advocate or campaign for a ballot measure. That's an easily stated general rule, but we'll spend some time today going through what that really means. And then, so just for background, public resources include all the items listed on this slide: money, staff time, use of buildings, communication channel, letterhead, vehicles. All of those would be considered public resources.
So this PowerPoint is structured as a bunch of question and answers that hopefully we can guess your questions before you have them. So you'll see we'll just be going back and forth here. So the first question here is, what can the library do before a measure is placed on the ballot? So this is before it is an official ballot measure. You want to pause, think about it with our general background. So as
Olivia, do you want us to alternate between you do Q&A for one, I'll do Q&A for the next?
Sure, that sounds good.
So you answer.
Back off each other. This is meant to be a casual conversation. This is much less formal than our typical presentations, like on the Brown Act or the PRA requirements. So the library may use public resources to draft a measure for the ballot. So this is before is an official ballot measure. So I know this is kind of contrary to our first slide there, but there are slightly different standards before it is on the ballot. So of course, as we've written here, the theory is that prior to and through the drafting stage of the ballot measure, the activities don't involve attempting to persuade voters or otherwise influence the vote. So it is not beyond the scope of the library's responsibilities to help draft a ballot measure or originally drafted. So
I think I'd add to that, as a practical matter, the commission is the only body that could put this on the ballot. And so for it to be on the ballot, the commission has to be able to spend resources to have the measure itself drafted, as well as resolutions and ordinances necessary. So the next question, sort of, we're still in the pre-measure time. Before putting it on the ballot, can the library use resources to hire a consultant to do a public opinion research to help understand how the community feels about a measure and about the library's performance? So the answer to that, we believe, is yes. There isn't actually any case law specifically on this, but there is a pretty clear Attorney General opinion. And I want to point out the Attorney General did distinguish between this particular use of public money, polling, and using public funds to put together a campaign. So the AG's conclusion was, yes, you could use public money on polling. No, you could not spend public funds on putting together a campaign and drafting, arguments in favor and advocacy pieces and communications plans and all of that. So that's the distinction that we'd make during the pre-phase.
More about my understanding or advice is usually it's more about collecting information, less about flyering.
So let's pause here because we're going to, we'll do that. But I want to take a pause. Any questions on the use of library resources before we get to a stage where the library commission is deciding whether to put the measure on the ballot or not. Okay.
This is just in line with the question we were just talking about, but that sort of polling information. I'm sorry, can you hear that? No, okay. That polling information can be used. Sorry, this is not a prohibited use of public funds, but the AG, if you're not familiar with Attorney General opinions, that is just kind of a step down from the court. So they do carry a measure of authority, even if they aren't case law. So the Attorney General did note that providing this information to a campaign may give rise to a campaign reporting obligation. But the poll results and polling consultants' reports would likely be public records subject to disclosure. So they can't be hidden, they can't be part of a targeted campaign. So just kind of things to think about that have to be done with that information going forward. So as Jeff was kind of getting at, what the bulk of our presentation is going to focus on now, as we're switching gears, is let's assume that the measure has been approved for the ballot and will go before the voters. So kind of switch hats here. It's official, it's going forward. So opinions are going to be heightened, and it's an official ballot measure.
So the general rule here, as I said at the very beginning, public resources can't be used to advocate or campaign for a ballot measure. However, and one of the parts we'll be discussing here, public officials and employees don't give up all their First Amendment rights just because they're public employees and public officials. And so part of the tension that the courts have had to wrestle with is how to square those respective rights and obligations, and how public officials and employees can exercise those First Amendment rights in the context of a local ballot measure. So let's start with the first question. Can an individual library staff person or an official, so when we use official, we're typically talking about the commission, but it would also be lab members and it would be employees as well. So can an individual library staff person or official, what can you do to support or oppose a ballot measure?
Pause, think about, well, you can't use the copy machines, you can't use library spaces, but you can use your own personal time.
So basically what it comes down to is the distinction we're going to draw is between, we'll start with staff, because staff is in some respects is a brighter line. Staff cannot use library resources, including their own time at work, to campaign on behalf of a ballot measure. However, they can work on their own personal time, same with library commission members. They can make campaign contributions using their own personal funds, same with the commissioner. Pay for and attend campaign fundraisers on their own time, make campaign appearances on their own time. And that last one we'll get into a little more detail when we talk about use of your title, use of your position. But these are all sort of personal activities you can engage in.
Can I use my library letterhead or my library title when communicating my support or opposition to a ballot measure? So the library letterhead might not seem like a clear public resource, but of course it is something of value that the library holds very closely. So the library letterhead is indeed a public resource. It may not use for ballot measure advocacy. We see this pop up when people start sending out mailers like the library endorsed this, or the library's against this, or the library said this, and they'll just take the library seal off the internet and slap it on something, and that's when we need to reach out and be like, no. Feel free to be in awe of my image here. Official titles are a little bit trickier because you can use it for self-identification, similar to, I would say, I'm Olivia, the library's general counsel, or an attorney, but only to be clear that you're not communicating on behalf of the library. Like, in order to indicate that you do have this experience, you're speaking as a library commissioner, but not on behalf. So that's why you'll hear, like, when people are giving bits on the radio or giving the presentations, they'll say, I am here, I am this person, but my opinions are my own, is the typical line. And you might adopt that same phrase.
Okay. Question is, generally, I share my views on ballot measures with friends and constituents. Is it okay to send information using my library email address and the library's email system?
Pause, think.
So our recommendation is no. Our recommendation is that you ought to use your own personal devices, your own personal email accounts for campaign-related activity, fundraising activity, communicating your support. It's not necessarily a super bright line. The use of library email address is a pretty low resource intensive kind of activity. But again, part of what we're going to be saying is the distinctions the courts like is between personal activity and public funded activity or public activity where you are portraying yourself as speaking on behalf of the library. So our recommendation is that you use your own personal devices and your own personal communications. Chair Doyle.
This is interesting, and I was wondering if this also applies before a campaign is happening. Should commissioners,
right,
if we're just talking about a campaign? Anyway, go for it.
No, I don't think so. I think that falls more in the category of the things that are necessary in order to get to a point where there's a decision before the commission on whether to place a measure on the ballot. There are certain things that need to go on. And similarly, in the phase where survey work is being done, there's going to be some communications about what the survey is going to look like, who it's going to be sent out to. So those are all, I think, appropriate types of activities. I think as we get closer in time to actually having something before the commission to put on the ballot, it becomes more important that we make this distinction between advocacy and information. And we'll get into that in more detail, I think, and then coming up in a few slides, where we start to try to explain what it means between advocacy and something else.
Excellent transition. So the question here is, may I attend a fundraiser for or against a ballot measure using public funds to pay for the ticket? So this is just the first question. When you're going to an event, can the library pay for it? That's a pretty clear no. This squarely violates the prohibition about using public funds for ballot measure advocacy or opposition. This one was kind of an easy one, I hope. So we'll just keep moving on here.
So what if someone gives me a ticket to a fundraiser for a ballot measure? In a lot of ways, this is really goes back to general conflict of interest rules in terms of receipt of something of value, which we've talked about in part of our AB 1234 training. But on the slide, we'll see the general rule is that a committee can provide 2 tickets per event to an official without the invited official having to report the value of tickets. Anything more than that, the face value has to be reported on the Form 700. So that is not really a expenditure question. This is more just a reminder to you as you enter into a campaign season that these general rules on conflict of interest continue to apply.
And I guess we kind of didn't answer here. You can go. Like they can give you free tickets.
Yes, you can attend.
And you can go. I think we get into a little bit more of that here. I have a mobile device provided by the library. What if someone calls me on it to discuss ballot measure campaign activities? So this gets to kind of the email question too. Where's the line between personal device and the library's device? In this situation, the device is provided by the library. So the best practice is to ask the caller to call, email, or otherwise contact you on a non-library device. It should be easy enough. Give them your personal email, give them your personal cell. Just in order to avoid any sort of appearance of using public resources. And of course, do that on your own time.
Can a commissioner buy a table at a local event, advertise themselves as commissioners, sit at an informational table on the ballot measure?
Wait. I already answered it a little bit, but
There we go. So yes, on their own time. Let's talk about a couple of different things. Attendance, you can certainly work on a campaign, and for commissioners, pretty much all your time is your own time. You're really only compensated for the time you spend at a commission meeting. So this is less of an issue for commissioners than it would be for employees, but we'll make the same distinction on your personal time. And a group of commissioners could do so, but we need to be aware of the quorum rules. Basically, a majority of the commission at one place could constitute a meeting. There is an exception that might well apply to certainly a campaign event, as long as the event is organized by somebody other than the library, which if it's a campaign event, it should be, and most importantly, that it is open to the public. If it's open to the public, then it would fall into one of the exceptions to the Brown Act general requirement about a quorum cannot attend a single meeting. And as long as you only discuss items that are on the agenda for that particular program, it would not be a Brown Act violation. But what it can't be is an event which is you only allow people who are supporters or opponents, if you're against, to come to a meeting. Years ago, I was involved in a case where that was the claim, that there was a meeting for the proponents of a ballot measure. And a city council, all the members of the city council were invited to attend, but someone who tried to crash the party, who was an opponent, was told this was not you weren't allowed to come into this meeting. And so he filed a lawsuit on the grounds that therefore it was a violation of the Brown Act, and the case settled, so we never had to resolve it. But that was a real risk in a situation like that. And similarly, tickets and tables, you can pay for it with your own personal funds and attend during your personal time. Can't use public resources.
this is kind of a continuation of that same question here. But
Olivia?
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie has a question.
Hi, thank you. I find it a little confusing still about the speaking on our own time and also identifying ourselves, and how walking that line seems a little tricky. And back to just something that Jeff had mentioned, we are not compensated at all for any time that we spend here or anywhere. Library commissioners aren't. I don't know if that's a law in California or it's just our tradition, but we do not receive any compensation. But if we're on our own time and we're at an event and we set up a table and we say, well, we are library commissioners, but we're speaking on as private citizens, what about like wearing our name tags or wearing some kind of library hat, or, and how many times do we have to keep saying this, like, to every person? I mean, how do we keep clear that we're not operating in our official role?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say, so let me give you, and I'm going to jump ahead a little bit to some information that we'll touch on later, but you can imagine three scenarios. One, there's a table at a community event, which is vote for measure X, right? And you're sitting there, and it's clear that what you're doing is you're talking to people about why this measure should be passed. You're handing out campaign materials. In that situation, while you can identify yourself as a library commissioner, it is important that at least if the question comes up, you are very clear that the library didn't pay for anything at this table. This is not, you're not being paid to be there. None of this was produced with library funds. You're there as an individual. Yes, you're a commissioner, and that helps explain why you're so strong a supporter, but that's different. A second situation is there's an information booth from the library at this event, and you're sitting there as a commissioner. And the information booth is to talk about the library, not about the campaign, but it is the kind of booth that you would put up at an event. My wife, who works for the Sacramento Public Library, goes to these things all the time. They're there to talk about, how do I get a library card, and where are the branches, and what kind of materials can I get? Those are perfectly legitimate. That could be funded by the library, because that is not there as a campaign measure. It's not there to advocate passage of a ballot measure. It is there to inform the public about the library and what the library does. It's the sort of thing that libraries do all the time. So the fact that there happens to be a campaign going on at the same time does not make that something that you can't do. But what it can't be is the blending of the two. You cannot then sit at the table and take the opportunity to talk to people who stop and tell them, are you aware that we have a ballot measure going on? And, you know, these are all the reasons why you should vote for it. And the reason there is because of the appearance. You're at in my scenario, you're at a table, which is a library sponsored table. It has lots of things, you know, library swag, whatever you've got. And you have the risk there that you are in the minds of people who stop by, blurring that line between library providing information about library services and you advocating to pass a ballot measure. The third scenario is you're just there walking around and you happen to have your library hat on. That's fine. You can wear library gear. You can talk about, you know, if you just happen to strike up a conversation with somebody, talk to them about why passage of a measure is a great idea. If the question comes up, which I can't imagine it would, you can say, I'm not here on the library's dime. I'm here on my own. I don't get paid to do this. You might be surprised I don't get paid to do anything, but I do this just because I think it's important.
Just one thing I'll add is you don't have to keep repeating that. Like you don't, every person that comes up to you, you don't have to start with, I'm a commissioner, but I'm not here on behalf of the library. I paid for my own ticket. You just be candid about it and move on.
Right.
Just briefly, it's, as Jeff mentioned, it's a lot about appearances. I would throw in there once in a while, these opinions are my own, not the library's.
Yeah, I think it comes up more in things like, I'm going to be, you know, someone has asked me to be interviewed on a local radio station, or I'm going to be on a podcast or something. And there, I don't think you have to repeat it more than once, but at the beginning, you should make it clear. Yes, I'm a library commissioner, but I'm here representing my own views. I'm not representing the library. Erica?
Yes, I was going to ask just to answer her question about wearing like library related hats and t-shirts if you're campaigning.
Yeah, so the easy one is if you purchase library paraphernalia, you certainly can wear it. You know, if you're given library paraphernalia, I wouldn't worry about wearing a t-shirt or a hat. I think that's perfectly appropriate. I mean, I suppose there's a fact pattern out there somewhere that where I would change that opinion, but generally speaking, I think you're fine.
Commissioner Green has a question.
Yes, thanks. I want to follow up on Commissioner McKenzie's question. What about wearing our name tags? If we were at a booth as proponents of the new tax ballot measure, would we wear our name tag identifying ourselves as a commissioner while saying we were acting on our own behalf, or would we not wear our name tag?
My personal opinion, I think you can wear it. The line is the line that we're talking about is in some respects one that's very fact dependent, but that is not the kind of thing that I think courts care about. They care about really using library resources in a way that advocates. And I suppose a court could tell you that the library must have paid for that name tag and therefore you're using library resources. But I think that's what we would call de minimis. It is such a small amount that I cannot imagine that would be something the court would take issue with.
Okay, so it's really financial. And one more question. If we are advocating for the tax ballot measure on our personal Facebook page that everyone knows we're the library commissioner, would it be a good idea to say, speaking on behalf of myself here, I'm the library?
Yeah, I think, again, I don't think it's something that you have to say before every time you post anything on your Facebook page. I know that and we can spend time on it. I don't want to get too far off onto a little bit of a tangent, but the blurring of lines between personal Facebook pages and official Facebook pages is something that's been discussed and been talked about in courts for some time now. Probably in the last, I don't know, 10 years, it's been a much bigger issue. So there are a whole host of reasons why you need to be careful if it's a page that really is a commissioner page. Like if the library said, hey, on our website, we've got a page for each commissioner. And on that page, you can go and post information. You want to be very careful about what you post on that page. It should not be advocacy, because that's likely to be a page that's actually maintained by the library. And so there are library resources used to maintain it. On the other hand, if you have a personal Facebook page and you put on your Facebook page, you know, library commissioner, mother, skier, you know, whatever the things are you want to put up there. And that's just one of the things that is a feature of who you are. I would not worry too much about using that platform to advocate. The piece that we can have another conversation about on a different day is there are, I think we've touched on them, there are social media rules that come into play because you are a member of a legislative body. And so there is some caution that you need about liking other people's posts and communicating via social media where you're, you know, sharing opinions. That is true, that is not a function of ballot measure, that is a Brown Act issue. So that's a.
Thank you.
If you have any questions, feel free to shoot us an email about a specific situation. Jeff and I promised we would not go into the social media Brown Act rules, so that's why I'm smiling.
I'm staring over the edge.
Jeff kind of already touched on this. At that event, materials that have library letterhead or paid with library resources should not be distributed because that's a public resource paid for taxpayer funds. That's in the sort of situation if you're sitting at a table that you paid for with your own money and you're there advocating for it. If you were, on the other hand, sitting at an informational booth and just providing purely informational things that the library put together, that would seem to be fine. So just kind of circling back. So when the Library Commission adopts an ordinance placing the sales tax measure in this situation on the ballot, may the Library Commission adopt a position on the measure. So this is a tricky one because, of course, our underlying overall rule is public resources cannot be used. This is an exception that's provided in statute. So yes, the Library Commission in this situation, if the Library Commission are the ones that put the tax measure on the ballot, they can adopt a position on the ballot. Courts have held that a governing body of a public agency may take a position on a ballot measure in an open and public meeting where all perspectives may be heard. So in this sort of situation, the ballot measure goes to the ballot. Pardon my lack of finessing there. The library can say this would be really beneficial for the library, which during a commission meeting, as long as it is open and public and during the meeting.
All right, can staff prepare a report to assist decision makers in determining the impact of a measure? And can those be posted on the library's website? So now we start to get into the sort of more of the what can you do? Because it is not an accurate statement that say the library has to remain silent on ballot measures. Staff is allowed to prepare a report on the effect so long as the report is informational and impartial. And impartial doesn't mean that you have to present both sides. It means that it should not be, you have to avoid language of advocacy. The term that was used originally in the Stanson Vermont case was, it depends on the style, tenor, and timing of communications. So an informational piece that is factual, like another phrase that is commonly shows up in cases is a fair presentation of facts. A fair presentation of facts is not a violation of this rule. So library resources can be used for staff to prepare a fair presentation of facts. And that can include what the budget looked like before Measure Y, what the library's budget, the information that you had earlier this evening is a good example of fair and impartial facts. It's simply explaining to people how Measure Y was used. And it could be, you could also present information that shows what would the library's budget look like without a continuation of Measure Y. What it cannot be is advocacy, and it can't be, well, like this slide says, inflammatory or argumentative rhetoric. Right? So it can't be, this will lead to a massive increase in illiteracy in the county of Sonoma, and the world will come to an end if we don't get this measure passed. That's the sort of inflammatory language that courts will not allow.
I'll add, there's a case or an AG opinion that talks about a valid report can also identify programs that would be cut. Like it can get that specific. It doesn't just have to be general budget cutting. It could be like Canopy is gone. New York Times subscription gone. So
I think that's the Vargas case. What came up years ago, and this is a good example of where the line gets blurry, in a community that we worked with, but not on this particular issue, there was a ballot measure, a sales tax measure, and the city at the time put out information that said, if this measure isn't passed, we're going to implement massive layoffs of police and fire. And the argument that was made was, that's ridiculous. That's not what you're going to do. You're going to cut parks, and you're not going to maintain the streets as well, but you're not going to get rid of police and fire. And that's really advocacy. Now, that didn't go to a court, so we don't know what the outcome would be. But that one started to get a little bit close to the line, because is that really a fair representation of what the consequences would be for not passing a ballot measure? In the library, it could be reasonable to say hours are going to be cut. It's reasonable to say we may have to defer maintenance on buildings. We may have to put a halt to the reimagining and some of the things that we've talked about doing to expand services. We may have to start curtailing services. Those are all legitimate. But again, it needs to be sort of a fair statement of facts.
this question asks if the library is asked to give a presentation on the measure and the library commission's position, can someone go and give such a presentation in a public or private format? The answer is yes, they may give a presentation as long as it is fair and impartial information similar to the report that staff are permitted to prepare. And a fair and impartial information that would be factual would also include the library commission's position. Of course, they can't focus their presentation on that, but it is a fact that can be included. Okay, so this is the end of our presentation. The key takeaway that we hope that you remember is that public resources cannot be used to advocate or campaign for a ballot measure, but the specific facts of a situation can determine whether it's improper use of public resources or not. And we hope that if there's any sort of question, you will reach out to us first before the event, and we can help work through that.
Question.
Thank you very much. Any questions?
Barbara.
Barbara?
Just a quick follow-up question. I was at the Chamber of Commerce meeting today, and if I went to another Chamber of Commerce meeting and made a impassioned plea to the businesses there that they support the ballot measure, and I say I am the library commissioner, but I'm speaking as a private citizen, can I use the library PowerPoint with all the facts and figures, or do I have to do my own?
Good question. There's two ways that you could approach this. One would be to say, well, as long as what the library has produced is a fair and impartial presentation of facts, then you should be able to do that. The other is, it's a public record, and the chamber could obtain a copy itself and produce it and hand it out. And that would, there's an argument that if they give you the option, you might tell them, well, if you want copies, you should probably produce your own copies of that, but I can certainly make that information available to you.
Also, presumably, if you are giving a presentation on your own opinion, you would probably be wanting something that is either for or against.
Yeah, it can be, I have seen where it can be a little complicated because, you may be invited there to express your opinions. You may want to advocate. The point of going might be to say, I want to convince the businesses that this sales tax measure is valuable, and that they should support it. But I would also like to hand them out information that the library produced. Can I do both things? And and the answer is yes, but every time you blur the two, you run the risk, not so much of like, I'm not going to tell you that a court is going to jump on you, but you start to create that situation where somebody says, this seems to me like the library is out advocating for passage of this measure. So, where I have seen it come up oftentimes is when, like, if Erica were invited to come and speak to a group. Now, she's an employee, so she's being paid for her time while she's there. We would, that would be a one where it would be important. Erica, you don't necessarily have to volunteer the information, but it should be a true statement that you are not being paid to be there. You're doing this on your own time. Now, if you're going there just to do a presentation on the state of the library, that's different. But if you're going there and you want to advocate on your time.
Just a comment. San Francisco had a number of campaigns to do all kinds of things, and the library director would go with the executive director of the Friends or someone from the Friends who was, and so they could double team it that way. So the library director would, or the library staff member would give the information and the educational piece of it, and then the person who was not on staff could come in with a wow finish in the ask. But up here, we're all on our friends groups, and so it'd be very difficult for any of the commissioners to do that. But we could certainly make sure that there are other spokespeople that are in support, and there are. So, any other questions, comments?
David, yeah, it seems to me this is an almost impossible thing to administer.
We just missed you, David. Do you?
Yeah, this is an impossible thing to administer properly, it seems, because suppose that I, as a library commissioner, relay what the library's duly adopted position is on the ballot measure, which is vote yes on Measure Y renewal. I'm acting as an agent of the library, yes, or as a public official, or both, or what?
Well, I think that it is fair to say that you can represent a position that was taken by the library in a public meeting. So you can say, yes, on, June 17th, the Library Commission passed a resolution supporting this measure.
Okay, would it help if I wore a little badge saying my opinions are my own?
Yeah, I will say this is generally less of an issue for elected and appointed officials when they are speaking out in the public, because you're not paid. It becomes much more of an issue when it's either employees who are speaking or when there is material that's been produced using library funds. There was a case years ago that is now kind of past the time, but producing a mailing list where the staff person produced the mailing list on her time and using a database that the public agency had. The court, I believe, that may have only just been a trial case decision, but the court said, yeah, that's a violation because you have used resources to produce that. But for you as a commissioner to go to a public meeting, to go to a city council meeting, to go to, some other group and speak and make it clear that while I am a commissioner, I'm here speaking on my own time. And I am, I'm a strong proponent of this. I think that's fine. If you want informational materials, my suggestion would be, to say to, if the city council said, can we get some informational materials on budget? You say, absolutely, I'll have Erica have somebody send you the information that the library's produced on those things, rather than you necessarily carrying around, oh, this is my bag that I have all my advocacy pieces in, and this is my bag when I have my neutral pieces in.
Helpful, thank you. Any other questions? I'm sure we're going to be in touch. We'll have questions, but we appreciate you're making yourselves available. Thanks very much.
We're
And
happy to help.
there is that one page handout, which is a takeaway, which gives you sort of a quick summary of the rules. Sorry, Olivia interrupted.
That's exactly what I was gonna say. You have a copy of these slides, you have that one-page handout, if you want to put it in your pocket. And of course, you always have us.
Do it in your own time.
We'll memorize it.
In the interest of economy, I'm going to sign off, and Olivia will stay.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Night.
Thank you.
Bye.
I'm still here. I'm just gonna go back into my non-video hole so as not to distract.
Super. Thanks, Olivia. Much appreciated. All right.
Thank you both.
Public comments. No public comments. All right. Library reports.
Good evening. I'm hailing from San Diego, where it is wet. I attended the California Library Literacy Services workshop for new library directors. It was very educational. But I do want to talk about some things that we've been notified recently. Some of you may know that the state has a $38 billion budget shortfall. And one of the ways that the state wants to make up for that is to claw back $131 million of our Building Forward Together grant projects. The library has been notified by the state library that all 4 of our round 2 projects have been put on hold until the May revision of the budget. We may find out in May that our projects are going to be funded. We may find out that none of them are funded. We may find out that some of them, we really don't know. So that's big news for us. We are still moving forward with creating, a budget and implementation timeline for those projects, just in case. But it doesn't look good. The other thing that the state has identified, and this is one of our most popular programs, is the Parks Pass program. They are going to sunset it. Currently, that's in the budget. They are going to sunset it. The current Parks Passes are good until the end of December. So unless the state adds that funding back in, we will likely lose that. I do think that, this is such a popular program. It's so popular around this state that this might be something that gets put back in the budget. We will know more in May. So those are the big things. Everything else, I do mention in my report about the Starlink. This is actually really important. AT&T is also talking about doing away with landlines. They are one of our service providers. So having that Starlink access on the Bibliobus for those areas of the county that doesn't have cell phone service or doesn't have reliable cell phone service is going to be really important for us as we move forward. So that is my report.
Any questions for Erica?
Just a quick question. Could you tell us what Zip Books are as one of the grant funding issues?
Now I'm going to let Jamie answer that question.
Hi, Jamie again. ZipBooks is a statewide program that public libraries can apply for. That lets patrons basically order books off of Amazon, have them delivered to their home for free, and then they return the books when they're done with them to their public library. The public library then adds those books into their collection so they can circulate for others.
We couldn't hear that last part, Jamie. Could you say that again?
After the ZipBooks that are purchased from Amazon are returned to the local public library, the expectation is that that library would add it to their collection to circulate.
Is there a short description possibly that you could send to the commission, not as part of the meeting, but just there must be a little description of them that I think everybody might find useful. If not, no worries, but I know it's been something that the state library has been supporting for a number of years, and it's a good thing.
Especially in rural areas or small libraries that don't have a robust collection, that don't have a plus or interlibrary loan option, and where the community is far flung, because Amazon all runs off of postal service deliveries, and USPS goes everywhere by law. So those are the libraries that are using it the most.
You're cutting in and out for those of us who are online, but we appreciate the information. Commissioner Elkin.
Thank you. This is a question for Erica or maybe for Mike Daw. I was excited to see that you've added the Starlink capability to the Bibliobus. I'm just wondering what's the kind of extension or range from the bus within which somebody can access that?
That's a good question. I don't know if Mike is here tonight. I believe he was homesick, so.
Oh, sorry. Okay. I can follow up with him. I was just curious.
Any other
Thank you.
questions? Thanks.
Not here tonight, but we can follow up with him and respond to your questions.
Thanks, Lisa. And I will say that if you want to reach out to your legislators and suggest to them that library funding, which is a very small portion of the library of the state budget, sometimes they take that on board and they think about it when they're discussing the budget in May for the revise. So do take that opportunity. And I would say that to anybody who's watching and all of our friends groups and that sort of thing. It's important for voter voices to be heard on something like this. All right, let's see. We don't have any members of the public here anymore, do we? Public comment? No public comment. Next is budget and finance reports. Can we have a summary of the budget and finance reports?
Good evening. Well, what we have before you today is the financial reports as of December 31st of 2023. December marks 50% of the fiscal year. And
could you make sure you're at the microphone?
I'll bring it closer.
Thank you.
So the report before you is a financial report through December 31st of 2023, which marks 50% of the fiscal year. And there will be a full mid-year analysis presented to the Finance Committee in February on the 20th of the month. And it will include additional information about revenues, expenditures, and technical adjustments. But in terms of where we are at this rate, total revenues are 20.8 million, which is 48% of the total budgeted revenues. December is the first billing that is received for property tax. It came in at 14.8 million, which is 57.1% of the annual target. The next and last payment for this fiscal year is received in April. And we're, as you can see, much on target to meet that, our annual target. December sales tax were $1.1 million. And as you know, because of the 2-month lag, we've received 4 months of receipts, which is 33% of our annual collections. And to date, we've received a total of 5.2 million, which is 31.7 million of the annual target. Out of all the other revenues, we've received 777,000, which represents a combination of interest earned, grants, and some donations. And under expenditures, our total expenditures are at $21.1 million, or 45% of our total budgeted expenditures. So we are under the 50% mark when it comes to total expenditures. Salaries and benefits are at 12.8 million, which is 45% of the total expenditures. We do have some vacancies and normal attrition, but also it represents, our total budget represents the COLA that went into effect on January 1st for all salaries, as well as increases in healthcare costs in January. So we will continue to monitor our salary and benefits to make sure that we're adequately funded, and we'll have more information about that at the Finance Committee later this month. Books and expenditures are at 2.2 million, or 54% of the total budget. There are some reconciliations that are normally made at a quarterly basis and will be moving to a monthly basis. But when the Friends donate funds for books, we do charge back to the Friends funds, and that is the reconciliation that has been pending in this report. And also, the division director for collections that you heard from today also is monitoring closely and understands that she will be within the budget at the end of the year. And the following reports, because this is a second quarter report, included detail by account for property tax and sales tax and other contract services by vendor, as well as Friends of Library balances for each group. And for the library capital expenditures, we have spent 1.6 million, or 39.7% of the capital budget. Just wrap up with that unless you have any questions.
Any hands up?
No hands are raised.
This is great. Thank you so much, Myrna.
Thank you.
Much appreciated. So nice that we're on track. No public comment. Let's see, then we will move on to Commissioner and Liaison reports. I have nothing to add to my chair report. Does anybody have anything to add to their commission reports?
Commissioner McKenzie.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Commissioner McKenzie has her
Commissioner
hand.
McKenzie.
Yeah, I just wanted to add a feel-good moment here. I've been invited to SNM State to work on a project on their campus, what they're calling their campus gardens. And I was invited to eco-psychology class on Monday. And the students were brainstorming about great ideas. And one of the ideas was brought up, the library has read to a dog, we could do that. And everybody went, yay. And the next person said, the library has storyboards, and we could do that, and they went, yay. And it was so cool that the library was kind of like the influencer, you know, the library was the trendsetter, and ideas are coming to the library to the students at Sonoma State. So I thought everybody should feel good about that, and I want.
Yay. We do. We should all be reading to a dog. Any other comments, questions on your commission reports? Okay. Commissioner Elkind, anything on your finance committee report?
Well, I think as usual, Lisa did a great job of summarizing the meeting, but for anybody who hasn't had a chance to read the notes thoroughly, I just wanted to let the members of the commission know that at the last finance committee meeting, we did have the privilege and the opportunity to see a draft of the facilities capital improvement program. This is a work in progress. It's not really ready yet to be shared with the full commission, but we went through it with Director Thibault and CFO Lopez and Jill Ayers from Group 4 Architecture, and I think had a robust discussion, requested some changes, and we will look to review that again and bring it to the full commission when it's in a little more final form.
Any questions? Okay. Then we'll move on to any additions to liaison reports? Commissioner Goldberg, anything?
Nope.
Okay. And no public, so no public comments. Library advisory boards and Foundation and Friends of the Library. Do we have anybody? I don't think we have anybody from our supporting groups. They've been doing a swell job out there, though. Which brings us then to item 9, the consent calendar. These matters include routine financial and administrative actions that may be approved by a consensus. Any commission member or member of the public may request that an item be removed from the calendar and have it placed into the action items. The commission will approve the minutes of the prior meeting in summary format, however. Does anybody have any objections to the consent calendar?
I move the approval of the consent calendar.
I second.
Any comments?
I would just note that the minutes from the regular meeting were revised.
So we are accepting the advised.
We're accepting the revised minutes, which
Correct.
included additional comments from Commissioner Engbarth.
Correct. Thank you very much for reminding us all of that, Commissioner Elkind. All right, then I'm going to take the roll for approval. Commissioner Cahill.
Yes.
Commissioner Elkind.
Yes.
Commissioner Engbarth.
Yes.
Commissioner Goldberg.
Yes.
Commissioner Green.
Yes.
Commissioner Hauser.
Yes.
Commissioner Evanridge.
Yes.
Commissioner Lagos.
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie.
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much. Action items by motion. 10.1, the Guerneville Regional Library lease. You want to walk us through that?
Yes, so this has actually been an ongoing project of mine to get leases on all of our library buildings. Believe it or not, Guerneville, as far as we know, we have never had a lease for that library. As a result of these Building Forward Together grants, we now do have a lease for this library. As you will note, the term is a 10-year term with 2 5-year extensions. Totaling a 20-year term. There's no rent associated with the lease, and our fiscal impacts are consistent with other recently approved leases and remain the same as under our arrangement for maintenance, utilities, and future capital projects. You will note that since there is no prior lease, We don't actually have an Exhibit A that remains to be developed. We did find some images from when the library was first opened and there was a party, but we do need to work with the county to develop Exhibit A. It really just needs to be a legal description and depiction of the existing structure. I can also tell you that the Board of Supervisors did approve this lease at their January 30th meeting. So this is the last box to tick before we can sign it and file it.
The library is closing in about 25 minutes at 8 p.m. All public restrooms will close at 7:50. Thank you.
And we are also working on a future budget for this grant project as well, and working with the county on that, and that will be part of our facility, our capital improvement plan. So, any questions?
Commissioner McKenzie has her hand raised.
Commissioner McKenzie.
Yes, thank you, Director. I appreciate the work going into this about the leases and the standardization of the responsibilities of the parties. And I just want to, on page 89, when we're talking about the responsibility of the landlord to repair and the responsibility of the jurisdiction to repair. I believe that all of this may be in compliance or be the same as recently approved leases. This is not the same as some of our older leases. And I can say for sure that this was not the same level of responsibility financially that was in the past here at Rohnert Park. So I would like to request that a review and a report on all the leases that we currently have be provided to us at some reasonably future point, so that we have this standardized responsibility for who pays what. In particular, I'm referring to 7.2B, which is perform major repairs over 5,000 to the HVAC, and that's the landlord, that's the library's responsibility, and that hasn't been the policy in the past. So I just want to standardize, making sure that it's fair to all the jurisdictions. And I appreciate your point that newer leases may say that, but the older leases don't.
Thank you.
Certainly we're all interested in fairness. I'm not sure that they're all going to be identical. So, but we'll have that conversation, certainly. Anybody else?
I move approval of the lease.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any other comments? All right, I'll call the roll. Commissioner Cahill.
Yes.
Commissioner Elkin.
Yes.
Commissioner Engbarth.
Yes.
Commissioner Goldberg.
Yes.
Commissioner Green.
Yes.
Commissioner Hauser.
Yes.
Commissioner Heavenridge.
Yes.
Commissioner Lagos.
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie.
Yes.
And it is unanimous. I'll make it unanimous. And thank you, Erica. I know that this has been really a struggle. It's we almost have them all.
And I do want to acknowledge Deputy Director Dara Brads. She was our chief negotiator on this, as well as, Jeff Mitchell, our legal counsel, worked in the end with the county's counsel to finalize all the details. So
that's terrific. Thank you very much. Action by motions. All right. So
These get done.
wait, I've missed something.
Oh, yeah.
We have, I know we have some. Appointments, that's right. No, we did those.
That was part of the consent calendar.
Yeah, that was part of the consent calendar. So we did Guerneville. We're down to 11. Agenda items for future commission meetings. Commissioner Engbarth.
Yes, I have some items to present on the next agenda. Two of them have to do with motions regarding the commission's obligation to complete the 10-year review of the joint powers agreement and to file a report on that review within that 10-year period of time. And so I've asked that both of those motions be placed on the next agenda for our next meeting in March. And that's about it. I've sent copies of the proposed agendas to both Erica and Deborah, and also I sent copies to Lisa as well. And I don't know how they might want to distribute them, but
Commissioner Engbarth, we're going to have a discussion about this on the agenda next month. So we'll.
Yeah, I think that we will. I'm just giving a summary of just where we're at with it and what I've done. So
Much appreciated. Any other items for future agendas?
we have a second on that as well. Barbara McKenzie's.
Yes, that's true. I did second the question of the discussion of having this review done by the end of the 10 years, which is August of 2024. And Chair Doyle, is there any clarification about whether this is to be a discussion item or action would be taken?
It's going to be a discussion item.
No, I've also have submitted a request under, and council, if they're still here, could maybe talk about this a little bit, under a government code section 54954.2A3, which deals with the authority under the Brown Act for a commissioner to direct staff to place a matter of business on a future agenda, and that's what I'm doing at this point. So it would be placed on the agenda for action, discussion and action.
Yeah, I can look into that, but my reading of the library bylaws is that it's generally at the chair's discretion to choose when to put something on the agenda. And I think the first step is to have a discussion, and then we'll, of course.
There's a time element with this that it ideally should have been taken care of today, but the more time we spend on this, the less quality of a report that we'll be submitting, and it is something that the JPA.
Madam Chair, I have a point of order. This is out of order. The discussion is out of order. Let them fight it out with the lawyers and come back in March for a discussion. I'm just not interested in the merits of this right now.
Well, I'm not doing that, David. I'm just
Sure you
saying,
are.
That
Commissioners, we need some additional information, and so we will have that discussion, and whether there is a resolution that's attached to it or not, we haven't decided yet. So any other items for future agendas? Okay. Then our next meeting, just as a reminder, is at headquarters. And I hope you have a lovely rest of the evening, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
You can throw it away if you want.
I will.
Put it in a blender.